Hello and welcome back everybody. It's Complicated Relationships Reddit Stories. Hope you guys are safe and healthy. Now let's see what the story is about today. What if your wife of 8 years with a kid starts to travel to her hometown frequently and stays there for weeks saying she missed her friends? But then you find out the real reason behind her visits. Let's find out all about it in today's story. Also, if you like what I do, please give this video a thumbs up and do subscribe to the channel.
So, to have a little background, my wife had a close friend who died unexpectedly last year in a motorcycle accident. She traveled back home 2,000 miles alone to attend the funeral, and while there, all her friends said she should have been married to him and that she was his wifey, and so on. She came back after 3 weeks, and our lives have never been the same since. After her trip for the funeral, she makes 2 more trips at the end of the year, alone, to visit friends and family. I have no reason to suspect anything, and at this point I know she wasn't cheating. Each of these trips cost our family a heavy financial burden, but she needs to grieve and get through things so we can continue on. I love my wife.
This past year, she makes another trip. OP still has no reason to question things.
On another trip out, I all of a sudden start seeing texts flood in our phone account. Like 7,000 texts in 2 weeks. I immediately question things and was lied to, of course. She extends her stay there and only comes back because we had a cruise planned. I download her texts and see that she was cheating, which she admits to. We have a lot of good discussions and says that she would end things. She makes another trip the next week. She tells me she ended things, etc., but when she gets home, I see her texts, Facebook, and know that she didn't. More lies, lies, and lies. We have a big yelling and screaming session, first time I've ever raised my voice with her. She only stays because she has surgery planned the next week. I tell her if she plans on staying and not having a divorce, she needs to cut all communications with him. We go to counseling, and all future trips back home are done as a couple or as a family.
Now, at this moment, she reluctantly agrees after arguing against cutting communication and travel plans.
The guy she was cheating with, she would never stay with for more than a few months. He's 27, he was born when I was a junior in high school, has a dead-end job, he's on the registry list for assaulting a girl 3 years ago, lives with his parents, and was basically just used by her. 1 month later, and I know she's been communicating with him, albeit in a limited fashion, and she wants to travel back for a wedding alone. I put my foot down and said no to the trip unless I go too, which she won't agree to. I've given her an ultimatum that if she travels back for the wedding alone, I'm filing immediately.
She has no reason to stay other than she has braces and needs to go to the ortho at least until December or January.
And we have a son. She knows that if we get divorced, as we're in California, that I'll end up with custody of our son. I've been the stable parent as per the definition by California courts. I am the parent that has been with him 24/7 when she was off traveling to visit her friends back home. I am the parent that is involved with his school. I am the parent that takes the time to play games with him. I agreed not to go to a lawyer until after we tried counseling, but at this point, I don't think she has any cares about staying with me or with her children. We have planned to go to counseling at the end of September after her mouth is healed enough for her to talk. I have her infidelity documented, screenshots of her texts. I have documentation of the time I spend with my son at his classroom. I have documentation of the weeks she spends back home visiting friends and ignoring her own family here 8 to 10 weeks annually.
What is stopping OP from going to a lawyer now? They are both not happy together, they are cordial and nice to each other, but there are no feelings on her part towards OP or their kid. Now here is a short update.
Thanks for all the support. I've known this was happening and going to go down this way for a while. Yes, she is acting very immature. That's the whole point of her trips back to her home, where she can drink nightly, party with friends, etc. She basically reverts to a 23-year-old when she travels back home, and that's where she wants to be. I've given her more than ample chances to grow up and start being a wife and mother, but she wants nothing of it. Her own mom is dumbfounded at what she's been doing and doesn't understand it. She thought she was through this phase of her life years ago. She'll be traveling for work in a week. I'll meet with the lawyer while she's out of town and get things rolling. I've definitely made up my mind in which way it needs to go. It hurts thinking about the past 8 years going down the drain, but I can only look to greener pastures ahead, right? Now off to get some legal advice.
End of part 1. If you're enjoying the story so far, please give us a thumbs up so this video will reach more and more beautiful people like you. Now it's time for part 2.
So I met with the lawyer shortly after this, and then she decided that she wanted to take a 6-week hiatus in Wisconsin again. She came back wanting to go to counseling, work on us, etc., but she kept texting her boyfriend, and even had a hidden Pinterest board where they were planning their wedding, planning their new house, etc. together. Because I split all funds and basically locked her out of my accounts, she has decided not to hire a lawyer for herself. She has continued to make 2 to 3 week-long trips to Wisconsin to see her boyfriend, and has now signed a 12-month lease for a house. She calls me complaining about how poor she is, can't buy food, etc. She makes nearly $70,000 a year. But I also know from the disclosures that she opened up 3 new credit cards and has maxed them out. To top it all off, she won a Harley-Davidson motorcycle in a raffle, but instead of selling it to have money to pay for a lawyer to fight for her own son, she has decided to keep it so she can go out riding with her family.
Funny thing is, her family that she speaks so highly of has been cheating on her.
Yes, her new boyfriend knocked up the wife and friend of my soon-to-be ex-wife, and she is married. Of course, my wife called me sobbing about how much she was hurt and how she was lied to. I guess she's never looked in a mirror lately. I guess she has now overlooked her boyfriend's cheating and is back together with him anyways. Her BF is a real piece of work. From someone that has met him personally and been forced to hang around with him, the word is that he is below white trash. He makes no money, he is on the National Registered Offenders list, he continually talks about a government revolution, he talks about how he had a full-ride scholarship from high school football, he talks and acts like he's been in the military but never served a day in his life. And now, with the child being raised by someone else, I'm sure he'll be sought out for child support as well.
Speaking of child support, OP's lawyer is estimating that he will be getting $600 to $700 monthly from the wife.
I'll have my son during the school year, plus some weeks for holidays and the summer break. I've already had her sign a stipulation, and the order was filed and approved in the court that she cannot have my son within 100 yards of her boyfriend. She is angry about it, but she wanted my son to travel this summer to see her. Of course, she has no money to fly him there to visit, and she calls him only around once or twice every month. I log and documented everything.
So basically, things are moving along. Wife is being an idiot and she'll end up losing her relationship with her son.
I'm pretty set financially now, and I'm having a very busy summer with my son. My only question would be, and I'll be discussing this with my lawyer the next time I meet, should I offer to eliminate child support if she signs over her share of the house? If we sold the house right now at its estimated value, she would get a $60,000 payout. This would allow me to more easily refi the house, otherwise I'm looking at moving to an apartment with my son, while the house sells and the divorce finalizes before I can start looking at buying a new house.
Well, OP, I'm leaning towards keeping the house in trade for her not having to pay child support. I think it'll be better for your son not have to move to a smaller place on top of losing his mom. You are a better person by a mile. I'm glad to hear you seem to be doing quite all right. More power to you, OP. Now, before we end the story for today, let's listen to a few responses from our beautiful community.
The comment: "What an awful time you and your son have been through. I have no idea what is the most sensible thing to do legally or financially in terms of the child support or house issue. I feel like she ought to be forced to pay that monthly sum to your son. I feel like getting her to sign over the house makes life easier for her, like it cuts all her ties and obligations to him. Of course, as other posters have pointed out, it is important to do whatever is easiest for you. Out of curiosity, and feel free to ignore me, how do you plan to enforce the 100 yards rule, because it seems to me that she would break it without thinking?" OP's reply: "Financially, she would be paying $7,200 to $8,400 annually for 10 years for child support. Collecting that, as someone else mentioned, might be a little difficult. I think California might go as far as garnishing wages if necessary now. I don't know the specifics, but by keeping the house, it gives my son an extra level of stability which the courts know is very important. I could take a loan out against my retirement plan to buy her out. I'll have to see what options are best for my son and me." Having her cut ties with my son would not be a bad thing. Her moral compass is completely out of whack with her actions of the past 2 years. I'd rather move on with my life with my son knowing that the upbringing he's getting is ethical and right. Enforcement is very hard. It comes down to catching her breaking the rule and then reopening custody. She can be charged with contempt if caught with the BF around my son, but she can also lose even more parental rights as well. Second comment. But the question is just, does she? It really doesn't sound like it to me, poor boy. OP's reply. She talks about wanting her son in her life, but her actions the past 2 years don't show that. Her number 1 priority is herself. Her number 2 priority is herself. She would rather go out drinking every weekend than have time with her son. She has drank to excess when she was alone with him, so that's another worry I have about her having him alone. I've learned recently that she's now smoking pot again, not particularly the sort of character I want my son exposed to. She has a 17-year-old daughter, my stepdaughter, that she had when she was 18. My wife has not been there as a parent for her. She, the stepdaughter, openly says that the only parent in her life has been me.
Thank you all for listening. Please like, comment and share the video if you enjoyed it. Also, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you will be notified when we upload the next video. Take care.